Let's go ahead and get started here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for choosing to spend your time with us today. I'm going to be the host of today's webinar. My name is Brandon Nolan, and I'm joined by Nathan Mertz, who's one of our principal architects here at OCG. Nathan, do you want to go ahead and move to the next slide? Thanks. Nathan, do you want to just share a few words with the audience about yourself?
Yes, Nathan Mertz, principal architect. I've been at OCG, Oxford Computer Group, for about 11 years now. I've been in the identity space for about 15. I have extensive background in Active Directory, Exchange, and other third-party identity and access management systems and governance.
Awesome. Definitely in for a treat. He's got tremendous experience delivering a number of these types of solutions across various industries. Nathan, could you go ahead and move us to the next slide, please? So if you haven't heard of OCG, I'm just going to spend about 30, 45 seconds on who OCG is and get us right into the content for today. So OCG traces its roots back to 1983. A group of friends at Oxford College, really uncertain about what they wanted to do with their career, they decided to start a training company focused on developing computer training programs. So if you think back in '83, what that might have looked like, that was pretty adventurous. There wasn't a whole lot of that sort of thing going on. Microsoft was just really getting started. Apple was getting started. So fast forward to today, Oxford is globally recognized for its deep expertise in Microsoft identity, and we proudly carry forward that legacy of being a training company, which continues to really shape who we are. We approach every engagement as an opportunity to explore the newest Microsoft technologies to make the most of this. We lead by sharing the why behind our approach and focus on educating our customers throughout the deliveries. One thing to note throughout today's session, you're going to see some QR codes. These allow you to quickly connect with us at any time. So if you see something that's interesting on the page and you want to follow up, these QR codes are going to take you to a site that you can add in that detail and post a question. So that way we can get back in touch with you. So feel free to reach out on any topic there. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to start with sharing what Entra Suite is. That's what we're here to talk about today, where it fits in the overall Microsoft identity stack. And then the bulk of our time, we're going to be covering several user journeys through demos that Nathan's going to share with us. So the format of that is we're going to cover the story of the demo at a high level, and then we're going to go into that demo environment, and Nathan will show you what it looks like. So after we cover these user journeys, we're going to look at the transparency aspects of access and authorization. All right, I'm ready. Nathan, are you ready? Let's do it. So what is Entra Suite? Entra is Microsoft's identity stack that's going to allow you to secure access for any identity to any app or resource from anywhere. So whether that's an employee, a contractor, customer, or a digital workload, inside your corporate network or over the open internet, all resources really meaning modern SaaS apps to legacy on-prem servers or even file shares. Next slide. Bump one more, please. So we see, sorry, go back one. We see customers typically start with foundational zero trust access controls like MFA and dynamic authentication, which leverages Microsoft's conditional access. And then they move on to secure access to resources from anywhere for the employees. And then next we see them securing the access for their customers and partners, and then finally securing access to any cloud. Next. Thank you. The Entra product family maps to these stages. So some or most of you have probably already adopted Entra ID for MFA and conditional access. The next step is Entra Suite. Then we get into external ID, which is to secure those customer and partner accesses, and then ultimately be able to have a complete solution that will secure the access to any cloud that you're in. Next. So today we're going to be focusing on Entra Suite, which is that complete suite of Zero Trust user access for the employees. Next slide. Thanks. Bump it one more time, please. So Entra Suite is made up of 5 deeply integrated products. So on the left-hand side, private access. This extends MFA and conditional access to the resources and replaces the remote access VPNs. Internet access is there to protect against threats on the open internet. And then ID governance in the middle is to ensure least privilege access, segregation of duties, things like that. And then ID protection, this makes access-based decisions on real-time risk assessment. And then finally, verified ID premium, which enables privacy respecting identity verification. So if my assumption is correct, many of you have probably seen the conditional access model before. This wheel has, had many iterations over the course of its life. Very mature product today and is at the core of Microsoft's security strategy. I wanted to provide a quick overview to ensure everyone has a level set on it and share some recent updates. So conditional access is Microsoft's unique engine that smartly powers the policy enforcement choices for access in the Zero Trust security model. On the left, the entities that are requesting the access, the middle is the robust engine that receives those threat signals from all the different Microsoft products, from email hygiene, device context, user and sign-in risk, network, etc. And on the right are the resource that we want to access, whether they be on-premise, in the cloud, SaaS applications. So often organizations have deployed a modern network solution, and it has its own policy engine. They can start to conflict with each other when you're using multiple policy enforcement points or policy engines. And organizations typically need to determine, which policy engine is going to be the primary one. Can you bump one more, please? So with Entra Suite, you no longer have to make that choice. You can actually have a unified policy that reasons over the identity, the endpoint, and the network. So there's this concept in identity security called continuous access evaluation, whereas I need to be able to stop application sessions if the risk level changes, even when a session is open. In the past, we've had to wait for session timeout to occur, but with CAE, we can adjust the policy to have the session be continuously evaluated. Now, while this is a great feature, it can only be really used on apps that are CAE aware, meaning, each application vendor is left to recode their products to add in this feature. And history has told us that this is not an easy task, and we're at the behest of these vendors. So the likelihood of that happening in the time that we need it is going to be probably not very good use of time to wait on that. So, so this is where we start entering into this secure service edge component, which now allows you to enforce CAE at the network layer for the app. So effectively, it provides the same control to manage those sessions through continuous evaluation, because you are managing it on that network tunnel that you've created between the access point and the resource. Next slide, please. All right. So internet access and private access. I like this slide because it helps us determine which product does what a little bit more cleanly. Um, the the both of these, they extend conditional access to web traffic and on-premise apps, but the internet access is an identity-centric secure web gateway. So this protects the threats from open internet and extends access policies to SaaS apps and internet traffic. Whereas private access is the complete zero trust network access solution that can replace remote access VPN with user to resource granular access controls. So together with these and Defender for Cloud apps, they actually deliver a complete security service edge solution. All right, so now we're moving into the next section where we're going to go through some demos. So again, I said we're gonna start at the high level, talk our way through what we're going to expect in the demo itself, and then we're going to turn it over to Nathan to see the demo. So in this first one, we're going to introduce you to a couple of characters. Claire is a hiring manager for Easy Healthcare. Claire just confirmed with HR that she wants to move forward with Joe, who is a candidate for a surgeon position she's been trying to fill. HR confirmed that Joe accepts the offer, and they complete the background check and signed all the pertinent documents, and he's going to be starting in a couple of weeks. HR then enters the details for the new hire into the HR system, as well as a start date. So the lifecycle workflow from Entra ID picks up the details from the HR system, kicks off the process of creating the new account and Active Directory, and populating it with the appropriate attributes to assign birthright packages based off of the department and the role that Joe's going to be a part of. With the permissions applied, the next part of the workflow is to provision downstream access. So given the birthright access package, we see that an email address needs to be established, Office 365 apps, and several business apps also need to be provisioned with with other functionality in external systems like Epic and a few SaaS apps as well. So once the birthright access has been provided, a report is sent to Claire, again, the manager, notifying her of the task's completion and that the account access is ready. Claire then also receives a temporary access passcode that she needs to send to Joe via text SMS. So next slide, please. So now, Nathan, would you please show us what this looks like? All right, and we're not seeing your screen. And you're on mute if you're talking.
Okay, here I am. All right, so I am going to go over the different the user journey from a manager perspective. So how we built this solution out is we use different Azure resources. We use Logic App. We use the Entra ID Active Directory provisioning. And we use Cloud Sync to synchronize the accounts back up into Entra. We used the identity governance solution. The governance solution contains the identity workflows and contains the different access packages. So to start this off, we're just going to use a comma separated file to enter the user into any type of system. So it could be HR, any HR system. It could be a SQL. It could be a REST interface. We can pretty much connect to any type of interface that's out there to bring into Entra. But for here, we're just going to do a comma separated file. It's very easy to do. So we have entered Joe Handel into our system. As we can see, he has a worker ID. He is part of surgery, ER. He's an intern currently today. We're going to save the file. And then we're going to use Logic app to actually capture the file and bring it into the system and then talk to the actual API, the Entra ID Active Directory inbound provisioner. So right here in Active Directory, we can see that there is no user account for Joe. So Joe is currently not in Active Directory. So we are just going to run the Logic app to grab the file, grab the user accounts, grab Joe, and provision him down to Active Directory. This all can be automated in an automated fashion. As in, we can kick it off at different time intervals, and we can have it run. So here's Joe Handle. He was created inside of the system. We have that his job title being intern. He was part of surgery. And then after the user account has been created in Active Directory, since we have the Active Directory inbound provisioner, we are provisioning out to Active Directory, and now we have to bring that account back into Entra. There is actually another connector where we can provision directly to Entra ID and not Active Directory if there's accounts that do not need to be on premise. As we can see, there's no Joe Handle has not been added to the system. He has not been provisioned into Entra, but we can do an on-demand provisioning. So we can grab any account that's on-prem and we can provision them to Entra through the on-demand provisioner. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a shortcut here and not do automatic automation here, but we're just going to put his user account in and we're going to bring him into the system to cut down on time here. As you can see, we've had the ability to bring him in. We can see the different attributes that were brought in from Active Directory. We can see his name, his company, display name, the domain name, the date that he was hired. And we can see the export details. So after he is brought into Entra, we can then initiate identity governance. So we can do lifecycle workflows. So here in the lifecycle workflow, this can be automated also, and we can do these on demand if they meet a particular criteria. So in this instance, we're actually going just to select him and run the workflow on the individual Joe Handle. So I'm just going to type him in, select them, run the workflow. And on this workflow, as we stated before, we're going to set up TAP and we're going to add him to a particular licensing scheme and to different access packages. For the pre-hire, all we're doing here is we're setting up TAP and assigning licenses. So we get the email for the new member, who's Claire is the manager. As we can see here, Claire has gotten the email for Joe Handle, and inside of the TAP, which is the temporary access pass, it provides a password for Joe to use. So the manager will take that password, and when Joe is his first day, she can provide that password to Joe, so Joe can log into the to Entra ID.
Okay, great. So thanks for sharing that one. I believe we have a second part of that, right? So if we look at this from the new hire perspective now, first one was the joiner, but it was from the hiring manager perspective. This one is more from the new hire perspective. So Joe is receiving an email congratulating him on his new role. And this email has a guide to download and set up MFA on his device, just normal stuff that you would do with your new employees. Joe sees there's a note in this that describes an SMS text with a tap code will be sent to him and is needed to log in for the first time to set up MFA. Joe receives that tap code to his cell phone. He follows the guide and successfully sets up the Authenticator app on his mobile device. Joe then logs in to verify his access, and he is successful. Joe then arrives to work on his first day. He's greeted by Claire, who has him log into his computer. Claire's pretty amazed that Joe's able to log in with no problem since he had already set up MFA on his device. Claire asked Joe to set up also an alternative verification and walked him through setting up verified ID and explained that this is used for a number of things across Easy Health to include verification when calling into the help desk. So Claire saw that Joe had all the right access except for one app that was needed. So she showed Joe how to self-request that access to that app. And then Claire was prompted for approval, being the manager, and immediately Joe was given access to this app. All right, so Nathan, why don't you show us what that looks like?
Yes, hold on 1 second.
Thanks for juggling all these different screens around.
Yep. So here's the Entra ID portal. We do have Joe handle. He has currently has no active assignments, no roles. But during the creation of the account, the pre-hire, he was added to specific applications and security groups. Just wanted to show that access. And then I wanted to show the access packages that Joe has been assigned. As of right now, he is not a part of any access package. He does not have access to particular applications that he needs for his current job. So I'm just going to add him in here real quick just so I can get the workflow to initiate so he can get the correct access. And this can be done by not the pre-hire, but it can be done during the hiring process where his start date occurs, and when that start date is current, then the workflow can actually be initiated and run. So down below, we see it's in progress. Joe is actually getting the workflows executed on his account. His account has actually been enabled, so he can finally log into the Entra ID. He's been added to user groups. He's been assigned different licensing, and he is requesting access to a particular package as part of this workflow, and that is currently queued. You can make the access packages approval if you want it to be approver or auto approved, since this is part of a workflow process. We just have it as auto approve. So if I go into the access packages, we can see that they are, I do a refresh, I can see that the request was submitted, it was accepted, but it hasn't been delivered yet. So now when we go back into the policies and the resource roles, we will be able to see that these have been assigned to him. So he has added a new group, he has new applications, and now we're going to go on and see how Joe actually interacts with Entra ID. So Joe has his account, which is EMP1888. That's how we configured the system. For his logon credentials, it could be any credentials that that is standard for your organization. So it could be first, last, and we can concatenate those also. So he has a temporary pass that Claire provided him earlier. He has some action required, so he has to set up multi-factor authentication and SSPR at this time. So that's all one process. So he has the Microsoft Authenticator app. He scans the barcode to configure his account. A little bit of a delay here.
So when he's scanning the QR code here, what's it doing? He's scanning it with the camera app on his
Yep.
phone, right?
Yep.
So
And then it
okay.
pulls up. So you would need the Microsoft Authenticator app or an Authenticator app to get this to work. So he scans the barcode from the screen. An Authenticator app does a notification back saying, "Hey, this is the number 17 to secure your account." So it verifies that that individual is who he is, and that is the device that he's using. So it has been set up and completed. And then you can see, based upon the licensing he was given, he has M365 right out of the gate, right on his first day. Also, he goes into his account and he's set up, he logged in with his temporary access pass, set up his password, and also he has the ability to see what apps he has access to, and um, display his applications too. So right here, he currently has, based upon the access package, he has GE Healthcare, Graph Explorer, GSA Internet Traffic Forwarding. So those are the three applications that were a part of that access package, and he has the ability to see those applications on his My Apps page. And then the My Access, um, shows him the different access packages he is a part of, or he has the ability to request. So on the first tab, it says available. So these are the available access packages that he has the available to request. Um, these show up, can be shown based upon security groups or different attributes for these access packages to actually show up. They just will not just show up for everyone. So you can actually filter on who actually gets the access packages to request those. Um, since we did have an identity lifecycle workflow, he was part of the demo governance workflow, and he was given the demo governance access package. Also in here, as a part of this My Apps page, if he was administrator, we could see he would have the ability to see his different the approvals that actually he was a part of, and then had the ability to if there was an access package he actually had to approve, if he was a manager, that would show up here also, and we will show that process a little later. So there's no pending approvals, no history for him currently today. So the next piece is the verified ID setup, which is that other piece to verify exactly who he is. And we do that part of the Authenticator app. To get this to work, Joe Handel would have to log in to enter ID or to his account through M365, select his account. And then as we can see here on the middle of the screen, there's a Get My Verified ID. So this is how he would initiate and actually configure the verified ID. And it's a very simple process, because after he selects that Get My Verified ID, he will get a QR code that he will scan. So there's Joe Handel. He's going to select the Get My Verified ID. Then there's a QR code that he will scan with the Microsoft Authenticator app. And then he would get a verification, a verified ID pop-up, and he can accept this or deny it. And then he's just going to accept this. And in here, he has the verified ID shows different attributes. You can actually configure this to show different attributes on this screen. It shows the activity of authentication to verify who he is at different sites.
So Nathan, this is a way that I can digitally prove who I am, for different scenarios. So one, it could be like an extension of your physical corporate physical access badge, right? So this
Correct.
can give you that sort of access. So
Correct.
every employee, could leverage this to do different things, to get them discounts and stores around the campuses, to paying for different things. It is a uh, an authentication component that sits in front of whatever application that you want to apply it to. So,
Yep. It could
um,
handle different credentialing, um, different if you have, successfully finished a particular course, you can have that verified also. So there's different ways you
mhm.
can use the app. Correct.
Yeah, I love it because it tries to bridge the gap between the physical and the digital world, from an identity perspective. So let's take a look at that in this next section, where Joe is just coming back from a long vacation, and he tries to log in and then realizes he can't remember his password. He tries a couple of different times, but he can't get it. So he remembers to call the help desk to have them help. The help desk directs Joe to the proof.easyhc.com website, where Joe's guided to use the camera on his phone to scan a QR code. Joe's verified ID that he has is selected on his phone, but additional validation is required. So the website is now requesting Joe to perform what we call a live face check to provide a verification that Joe is indeed Joe. Joe proceeds with the live face check, then checks against his employee picture that's on file, and provides a help desk engineer a confidence score. The help desk then sees that the score is high enough to offer a tap to Joe, so he can then have his password reset. So over to you, Nathan. Show us what this looks like.
Most definitely. So we have verified ID set up, but now we have to have the verified ID configuration for this actual process to work. So what we do is when you have your verified ID set up, um, or anytime during, let's say, onboarding of your individual, you usually probably take a picture of the individual so they can get a badge and they have access to different things. During that time, you can use that same picture to save into Entra ID for the actual account. And that is what is used during this verification process. So in Entra ID, when you see your different pictures that are saved for your contact, that is the picture that is used to verify who the individual is. No, when we're actually doing this process, the picture for the individual when it's actually scanned in from the phone is never stored. It's only compared against what's in Entra ID for that account. So Joe Handel goes into this website. He has forgotten his password. So he either says, I need to set up my verified ID or I already have my card. In this process, he already has his card. And when he selects, I have my card, what happens here is he gets a QR code. And in this process, he will verify his face of who he is. So the help desk can actually assist him in changing his password. So this actually does a physical verification of who he is based
So,
upon a
so in
confidence
effect,
score. Go ahead.
yeah. So in effect, Joe is the person holding the phone. The
Right.
phone has the verified ID on it, and now I need to tie my physical appearance to that verified ID in real time. And so then the help desk in step 3 gets this gets this confidence score read out on their side, and then that gives them the verification to provide a tap for him to reset his password.
Yep. So as you can
Okay.
see in the background in the video, you can see my face was scanned. It does a full scan of my face. I have the ability to decline that I want to share this with the help desk. So it actually pops up and says, hey, here's who you're giving your information to. Would you like to do that? And I can say yes or no. And I just select next so I can get my password changed. And in the background, when it does that verification, it provides the help desk individual that verification score. As we can see right here, it shows the individual's name, their email address, and the face check score. So based upon my face that I just scanned into my phone and the image that was taken during onboarding and then is stored in Entra ID as your contact that you see in Outlook um, or in Teams, that picture right there is used to check against each other, and then I have a face check and confidence score of 94, pretty much 95% accurate that it is who it is, that I am not um, providing information that's not true. So the help desk individual takes that information, and then he can provide a tap to the individual Joe Handle, and he can go and reset his password after he uses the tap verification for the one temporary access pass.
Awesome. Thanks, Nathan. Let's jump over to the next one. The next one, we're going to be talking about the hybrid worker scenario. Sorry, no, we're going to be talking about the mover scenario. I gave you a sneak peek in what's coming next. So the mover scenario, Joe's now, he's been at Easy Health for a year, and he's been promoted to a different department. Claire's really proud of the work they've done together and happy to put in the employee action form to kick off that HR process for the transition for Joe to move from surgery into the medical staff department. HR places the changes into the HR system, Workday, something like that, by updating the role, the title, the department. Entra ID's lifecycle engine picks that up, picks up the changes and publishes the new attributes, which then kick off an approval process for the new access package. Claire approves those, and in return, she receives a confirmation that the access has been provisioned. Also, the previous app access that isn't required any longer, there's a conflict found, and this needs to be remediated before access can be fully granted. So this is going to show us a segregation of duties concept here. So Joe comes in the next day, logs into his computer in the new department, checks his access. He looks at the My Apps. He sees that, he's got these new apps, and he also sees that previously an app that he had used is missing, but he knows that he doesn't need access to it any longer. So this is normal. Joe checks the access of the new apps to confirm that all is working well. Okay, Nathan, over to you. Show us what this looks like.
All right. So here's the employee mover perspective. I'm going to show you, here's his current access in the applications that he currently has today and his security groups. So for this to actually be initiated, HR is going to make a change. He is going to be he is currently in surgery, and he's going to be added to the medical staff, and we're going to watch how his new department is going to change his access. So we run the logic app to bring the data from the file to run it against the Entra ID Active Directory provisioner.
So this is all simulating the
Yep.
HR process, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this would be
Okay.
automated running in the background, correct? But this is the Azure resource that it's using. So I'm just going to refresh this, and then I'm going to go into Active Directory. As you can see, the department is surgery. And then I'm just going to go out, since we just ran the process, I'm just going to run refresh and then view Joe. And then Joe's department has changed to medical staff. And now that it's changed, we have to get that information up to Enter ID so we can run the lifecycle workflows against Joe Handle again, so he can get the different access packages and requests. So we're going to do an on-demand synchronization for just for Joe. And it actually takes longer than this if I was um, not doing a video. The whole process from Logic Apps takes a little bit of time. So we took some shortcut here. So here you can see the department medical staff is been populated. I'm going to go into the lifecycle workflows, and I'm going to initiate the workflow for Joe for the employee job change. Kind of speed this along here. We can see the workflow version below. He is still running against him. So it's queued up the remove access and add access. Still in progress from the bottom right. And then we had an issue. In this issue, we see that two of the packages, him removing the selected groups and removing his old access package was correct, but requesting the new access package was a failure. So now we have to understand why this was a failure. So we're going to look at the access package that he was supposed to receive. So we're going to go to, he should be getting the ERM application. As we can see here, that the demo governance package is in conflict. So this is the separation of duties. So it was delivered, submitted, accepted. So I removed the actual SOD violation, kind of a mitigating control. So that he has the ability to actually be assigned the access. So it's kind of a workaround for this process. But what would usually occur is you let the separation of duty actually go through the process, and they would not have access to this package until the other package was actually removed successfully. So we're going to go back into the job profile change, and we're going to see, we're going to run the workflow again so that he actually gets the actual correct access package. So we see that the other ones were queued, those have already ran, and then this was completed, the removal. This was the old one.
So a quick question for you,
Yep.
Nathan. Is SOD part of Entra ID governance or is it part of IDP2?
It is part of the governance.
Okay.
We're running the package again so that he gets the correct access request.
So another question here is in the context of the HR connector, does it query AD as part of the unique username generation, or is
Yes,
there
it
a
does.
database with all the existing usernames that are checked before the username generation?
So how this works is if you are using the Entra ID AD provisioner, it will check uniqueness against all of your Active Directory accounts or the attributes that you are checking for uniqueness. If you have multiple connectors um, that need uniqueness, let's say like proxy addresses, and you have two connectors that have proxy addresses, those would have to be a master file or database to contain that uniqueness if they're part of the same domain. So if you have multiple connectors and there's attributes that you cannot look up, you have to bring into a database, that's what you would have to do to check uniqueness before you actually provision out, because it cannot check uniqueness across multiple connectors.
Well, we have a solution that can do that, but it's not native to the
Correct.
feature set. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have the ability to bring in multiple sources and check against multiple endpoint systems to check uniqueness. So here's the ERM applications. He has access to the different resources.
So let's move ahead a little bit.
Okay. Yep.
We're running a little short on time here. So let's skip over to the hybrid worker scenario. I think that's the next one here. Yeah. So in this scenario, we're going to be looking at some of the internet access, private access components. So Joe finds that he's going to need to access some aspects of work from home. So he gets approval from Claire on his status change to a hybrid worker. Joe's used to working in this manner and explains to Claire that in a previous company he's used a VPN, so he understands how to do that remotely from work. Claire shares that at Easy Health they do things differently and no VPN is required at all. Joe's intrigued by this and knows that it was a pain in the past to deal with VPN. It had outages. It always needed to have patches applied, so on, so on, and so forth. So Joe's at home and logs into myapps.easyhc.com and clicks on the app he needs to work on, and that's it. Joe calls Claire and he says it can't be that easy. Claire responds with apparently it is. This technology still protects Easy Health data like a VPN, but it has a much better user experience with no additional dependencies on the workflow. Awesome. So let's go ahead, back over to you, Nathan. Show us what this can look like.
All right, so here's the configuration for global secure access, which Brandon gave a quick overview. So in the global secure access, we have the ability to monitor, manage traffic from a device. As for this scenario, there is an agent on a particular device being a desktop, and then we can manage how the traffic navigates. That navigation can go to particular SaaS applications. So Microsoft, any internet access profile. So here's the profile screens, the traffic forwarding. So if you have the agent on your machine, it gets the information for the policies that you have, and then you control the different traffic. So Microsoft traffic profile. So this is any traffic that goes to Microsoft sites. You can have different policies, conditional access policies that run against the individual, and you can filter that based upon user and group assignments, and you can do network assignments also, like remote network assignments. So if I'm external, then I have to go through this Microsoft traffic profile. And then we have internet access profile on the far right, which is selected. This is any traffic to the internet has to go through this profile, and we can set up the same type of policies and conditions against that traffic. The center one, the private access profile, this is where we would kind of use the VPN scenario where there's a particular application that is on-prem. You have to be a part of a particular network. You can set up conditional access onto that application via this traffic forwarding. So in this scenario, we have an agent that's on a machine, and we're going to show how that traffic is actually filtered through Microsoft, through Entra ID. So in the traffic logs, I have in here everything that's Microsoft, and then I'm going to go to the desktop, and I can see when I've logged in. So that was everything on the 14th of the month, and this is the 16th. So I'm just going to just run through the Azure portal, M365, so it actually picks up the traffic from the agent. And eBay, so we can see the different, so if I go in here and I hit refresh, we can see the traffic from that machine. Okay, that's what I have for the secure access.
Okay, so I have one question here. For intra inbound bulk provisioning API integration, what is the most convenient method, Logic App or Runbooks?
We use the Logic app. Just because Microsoft already has built out the Logic app to talk to the bulk upload graph API. So it's very easy to use, especially if you're going from a file. It takes a file, puts it into JSON, and then executes that against the bulk upload API. Also, part of that Logic app, we can easily change it out to read from a database. So it's almost pre-built for you. You can just customize it to whatever connector you want to bring the data from. So it's already built, so that's why we use it, because it's simple. Microsoft built it, and it's very easy to customize. So that's why we use that over a Runbook.
Okay, awesome. So we are getting close to the end of our time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this one, the narrative, and then we're gonna skip this demo. It's very similar to the others, as you can imagine, the lever scenario, terminating the access, things like that. I want to get us into the audit logs and transparency next. So I think that one is a bit more important. So let's talk about the lever. After about 3 years of working at Easy Health, NISA, an employee there is moving on to a new opportunity. Her last day is in 2 weeks. Claire kicks off the employee action form, which triggers HR to start the leaver process. HR then enters in the final date into their HR system. Entra ID Lifecycle picks up the changes and schedules the Easy Health leaver process, which shuts down all access at 5 p.m. on the final day and sends a report out to the manager that this was completed successfully. So another thing, as part of the leaver process, you can think about is when you're transitioning users, if you have an alumni program, so if you're like an education group or a larger organization, you have alumni, or any other use case where you need to still provide access to specific apps after they've left the environment. So you can actually automate a transition over to a B2C or an external ID type user as well. So they can access things like past paychecks, W-2 information, 401k, stuff like that, right? So that is amazing. So we can, again, automate that and make it seamless for transitioning the worker identities. Okay, so the next section here are about the audit logs and transparency. So I wanted to make sure we get a couple minutes to look at this. We're going to be looking at, who approved, how, and when was it approved. Nathan, over to you.
So this is a part of the attestation. So we can attest the access that is currently there for auditing. So we have in the Epic demo access request, we can see when access was given, and then who actually has to review that access on a timely basis. On here, we have it as a weekly process that we're actually auditing the access for individuals. So here's the two individuals. We have Joe and Miriam that have access to this package in the actual My Apps page. If I'm an admin, I can do the access review right from here. On this, it gives you recommendations if I should deny access or approve access. Some of that is based upon their inactivity, and there is another feature that is being added based upon current access based upon your department. So it's kind of the groups that you're currently a part of to recommend if you should be a part of this access package or not. So if I'm an admin, I can easily I can do multi-selection or I can do individual, and I have to approve it. I have to give a reason why I approve it. So I just said approve because this is just a demo, and then I accept that approval process or that request and verify that it's still there for the reviewer. I have audit logs so I can see the different changes that have been made. And that was the end of the
Awesome.
demo. Yep.
Okay, so let's flip back over to the deck real quick. The last slide here, if we can put that up just for, thank you. So we had one final question here. How do you keep track of provisioning failures? Is there any good Microsoft documentation available to alert admins? What I would say is go ahead and shoot us a note here, either the QR code or to the info at. We can follow up with some documentation on that if you'd like. Nathan, is there anything specific you want to share on that?
There is provisioning logs on the actual application inside of lifecycle workflows, and in Entra ID, there's some logs with workbooks that there's a couple out of the box workbooks that show the provisioning logs in graphical format. So based upon connectors, where you're trying to connect. Provision to or update. So yep, there is some out of the box information. And then if there's anything customized, you can do that too, based upon the logs.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for sticking with us over the past hour. Just a real quick recap. We started with looking at the whole Entra product line and brought focus into the Entra Suite, which was really focused on securing access for employees. We then walked through various user journeys from different perspectives, joiner, hybrid, moving departments, helping reduce fraud with verified ID at the service desk, and ultimately, employee transitioning out of the organization. We looked at how these journeys play out in the tools, and finally we took a look at the traceability aspects to audit the access packages. So question final is around, will we share the deck with attendees? Yeah, I think we can share a PDF version of the deck. We'll get with our marketing team to get that out to all the attendees today. Thanks so much for the time. If there aren't any additional questions, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. If there are, I'm happy to stay on for another minute or two here if there are any final questions.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.